associated materials developed by Lucy Calkins, and whereas the board affirms that such strategies have demonstrated to be ineffective and inconsistent with the science of reading. Now, therefore, be it resolved that no funds allocated under the budget shall be used in grades JK through 6 to purchase curriculum, professional development, testing, teacher release time for training and administration, and any other services or materials provided by or affiliated with the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, Lucy Calkins, or any successor entities or companies affiliated with such models. Be it further resolved that it's the intent of the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education to extend the implementation of the evidence-based reading instruction aligned with the science of reading through grade 12, beginning with the 26-27 school year.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the pending motion to approve the budget. Is there a second?
I'll support.
All right, support by Mr. Storm. Any discussion?
I'll start.
Can I explain the behind the
Sure.
amendment first?
Absolutely.
So I thank the fellow board members for considering this. I'm bringing this resolution forward tonight because it's time we provide clear direction and transparency around the literacy practices in our district. For years, I've raised concerns about the district's use of Teachers College units of study in Lucy Calkins aligned material. In 2022, I submitted a formal request to Mr. Myers and Dr. Outlaw asking for a breakdown of the spending of any units of study curriculum, professional development, or related materials. I was told at that time we weren't spending any money on it. Yet in August of that same year, 2022, we held a 3-day training led by the Teachers College staff developers. The training was not mentioned in the curriculum update we received from the administration over the weekend. I continued asking questions since then, including having ongoing conversations with Dr. Outlaw, and have been repeatedly told that the units of study are not being used. In September of 2024, I was also told, quote, "We don't have much Lucy Calkins in Brighton these days," and yet it keeps resurfacing. In October of 2024, an elementary principal at Hilton sent an email to staff that said, "After reaching out for further clarification, Teachers College is still our district common assessment for grades 3 and 4 and needs to be administered at least twice a year and entered into Illuminate." The email also instructed teachers to complete sub-forms to get classroom coverage while administering the assessments. I also asked Mr. Anastoff for data on how many sub-release days were used last year for K through 4 assessments. The number was 73.5 days. While not all of those days have been associated with the Lucy Calkins assessments, any time and any money spent on a program that we are being told we don't use is a misuse of public funds. At Maltby, units of study was still proudly displayed during the curriculum night this year. I've been told repeatedly that it's a result of decentralized and inconsistency across buildings. That may be true, but that's exactly why we need this resolution. I've asked when and how teachers have been directed not to use the units of study, and I haven't received a clear or consistent answer. That confusion is not the fault of our teachers. We have failed our teachers like we have failed our kids. Do the teachers follow the default old curriculum and teach children the wrong way, or spend money out of pocket, or ask the PTO for programs online that might be backed by the science? This lack of direction is harming our efforts to deliver high-quality, research-based literacy instruction. We need a clear directive. Yes, we are piloting other curriculum options, and I support the work fully. But as a wise educator told me, when you remodel a kitchen, you still have to provide the kids nutrition. It is even fine if you give them cereal, but Lucy Calkins programming teaches kids to read the wrong way, thus not even giving them cereal version of nutrition. It's academic poison. This resolution affirms our commitment to implementing the science of reading and sends a clear message. No more spending time and money on failed instructional methods that are not aligned with what we know works. I urge your support. Our kids deserve instruction that is proven to work, and our community deserves transparency and accountability. Let's not tell another child, "Sorry, we knew this is wrong, and we used it anyway and failed you." Thank you.
Mr. Saul?
While I agree to most of this budget resolution, first I want to start this with, it is the direction that was started before many of us were even on this board, that they are moving away from that. I'm just going to share a personal opinion on this from my significant other. She is someone who has been an ELA teacher for 35 and a half years now. And it is she is part of the team that goes to Oakland County and presents back what they've learned to the other teachers in her district. When I asked her about this, because I knew nothing about this before you brought this up, her question to me was, who's still using that? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but we're about to find out, I think. So her take on it is, it's a tool. It's a tool that was available when many of the teachers, at least of my wife's age, went to college and learned this. And it remains a tool, because what they are proposing now, the newest and the greatest, it's just like the new car. It comes with all this newfangled buttons on it, but some kids still need the old car to make it. We all know, I know you know, everyone up here knows that not one child learns exactly the same. And for that reason, every once in a while, this thing gets pulled out of the pile because all else fails, and they go, let's try this on. I don't know what the percentage of people that it might work on are, and neither does my wife. But she says that's the only reason it's really kind of still out there and exists. It's just one more tool for the box. My real concern about this, and my wife and I both agree that if it were removed forever, it wouldn't change anything, because they'll come up with another way to deal with those kids and teach those kids how to read. There'll be something better and greater by the time we pass this. There's probably already going to be another one. It's an evolving process that changes over time, over and over again. We reinvent the way we do this. And let me just say, if I'm saying anything incorrectly, please know that I literally knew nothing about this until you brought it to our attention. It just never fell into my wheelhouse. So the only part that I really have a problem with is attaching this to attaching it to the money. And the reason that is I think that's not needed. We're all in I think if you take that part away from it, and I'm not in favor of spending money on this, but I understand that there might be some people that are still using it, and we may need to train some people for the new with that money. It's very possible. But anytime you attach it to a budget, I just don't think this is the place for that. The budget isn't where this goes. It needs to be a policy. It needs to be followed up on until we reach the rest of this resolution's goals. But why are we holding up money? It may be needed. So for me, you take that paragraph, now therefore be it resolved, that first part where it talks about putting, not spending any money out of the budget out of it, and I'd say yes to it tonight. But until that is removed, because I don't want to see somebody else use the budget for something that they feel passionate about, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. So for that reason, I would be a no vote tonight. If it came back before me without that, I would pass it 100%.
I would like to follow up with what Mr. Strahl has said. I agree with a lot of what you said. First of all, I'm not a specialist in reading education, reading curriculum. However, I don't like the idea of this being tied to the budget. Whether or not I understand that in general, this is not being used, and we did discuss this today at the academic committee meeting today, that this is not the curriculum that's being used. Yes, there are some teachers that are still using it. However, I also want to be careful that we are honoring our curriculum review process in its entirety, whereas it's a very thorough process that Dr. Mosier has invested in for our district, and she has a schedule as to when each course, class, subject, area, kind of like a grouping, is going through it, where it's a multi-year evaluation process where they evaluate the standards. They spend a year, they have a committee of volunteer, whichever teachers, the teachers that volunteer to do this, do an evaluation of the standards so that they know kind of horizontally what their students are supposed to cover, vertically what they're covering before, what they're covering after, and using this standard idea to develop which curriculum we want to use. So in Michigan, we do not have a standard curriculum that we're using. What we do have is we have standards that we have to meet. So by meeting these, by looking at the standards that are going to drive our curriculum, that's how we decide what we're going to use. Well, then after the teachers, and after the teachers do a thorough understanding of the standards that need to be covered in their courses at their grade band, they will then look at different materials, and they will do a review of multiple curriculum projects. And they go through the process, and again, this is multi-years. Then they settle, they kind of narrow it down, and they come up with, eventually the goal is to get a fewer number that they're going to pilot. So they're currently in the process of piloting elementary ELA programs. Am I doing a pretty good job so far, Dr. Moser?
Summarizing well.
Somewhere. Okay, so they're doing this process, and you have a lot of buy-in now. You have a lot of teachers that are implementing the pilot for next year. We need to go through this. We need to do this in the pilot way so that once this is adapted, then I think the plan is in 26, 27, we'll have new ELA curriculum for K-6, pre-K-6. And that will be after it's been piloted, it's been tested, and it'll be driven by the teachers. So this will be something the teachers will be invested in, and it's not going to be something that's coming top-down from them saying this is what you have to use. This is something the teachers have investigated, they decide that this is what they want to try, and they've got some results that show that this is positive. One of the things with kind of putting a resolution like this is it really kind of takes away the teacher's agency in terms of deciding which curriculum materials are going to work. I'm not saying that they're doing this, and again, I'm not a specialist in reading education to know enough about it. I know the concerns with the Lucy Calkins. However, I do know that, as Mr. Stahl was saying, that some kids, you need to have a different tool. It may be a tool that you're using for a kid. It may not, it's not the general curriculum across the district right now. So the idea that we're not paying for the materials, there may be some teachers that are using in-service day or release days to do something with that. But in general, I don't like the idea of this being, I guess I'm going to back up now. So that's kind of the old process. I want to make sure that we respect the curriculum review process. I'm kind of going on. So the first thing is to respect that. But back to the other idea, I really don't like the idea of tying this to the budget approval. That's my first, is procedurally. Because if that's the case, we're going to end up looking like Congress, and we're going to have all these different projects coming in. It's like, I want to pass this, I want to pass this. And we're never going to get our budget passed because we can never get a majority to agree on it. So I'd have to say that I'll vote no on the resolution, on the resolution for this tonight.
Mr. Bay?
So in the academic committee today, one of the things Dr. Moser told us is that she has instructed building administrators to not approve release days for the Lucy Calkins assessment. But they still did it. That's why we need clear direction from the board. We have to give Liz the tools to tell these people, the board directed we're not doing this anymore. But it is still today on our curriculum assessment calendar, the teachers' college stuff. And also, I want to be clear, this isn't coming from top down. This is coming from me going door to door to door and listening to parents and teachers all summer long. I had a whole group of multi-teachers call me multiple times during the campaign saying, please help us. We are not being heard. We need new curriculum. I have had Hilton teachers come to me and say, please get this changed. So it's not a top-down thing for me. This is a grassroots thing. And we need clear direction from our board to get this done. This isn't a surprise to anyone. And I'm surprised, actually, Mr. Stahl, that you say this is first you've heard of it, because at the Kiwanis Club candidate night, we talked extensively about Lucy Calkins. I have been ringing this bell for years and months. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that this was coming up. And I'm not on the academic committee, but I am on the finance committee, and I told the finance committee early on that I was a no on the budget unless we adopted new curriculum. I've backed off because the curriculum we're piloting right now is not even on the state list. So I don't want to rush something through that we're not even sure if the state's going to approve. So I backed off of that. I also backed off at the request of the administration that it be K through 12 and just go JK through 6 because, again, we're not doing it. So why are we spending money to give teachers to make teachers give an assessment and get a sub for something we aren't doing? That is a waste of taxpayer dollars.
I would just like to add that the pilot is available to any teacher that wants to use it. So any teacher that doesn't want to use Lucy Calkins can use the pilot this year. So
It wouldn't be a problem then if we got rid of it.
but it doesn't need to be tied to the budget.
Does it, Ms. Tierney?
I know this is a tricky topic. I agree with the sentiments on not tying it to the budget. However, I also think that Alicia makes a very valid point. I want to make it clear that our teachers have always been resourceful, dedicated, motivated, and I think that that's reflected in the strong ELA scores throughout our district. But this resolution builds on that foundation by giving the educators the tools to support what they need to help every child become capable, confident readers. And so when I think about it from that angle, I support her resolution because I do believe it prioritizes that evidence-based reading instruction and directs the investments of our district to be made in high-quality curricula, training, assessments, and any other services or materials. So that's just my sense on it.
So I agree with the spirit of the resolution. My issue is the process. I would support it if it were not tied to the budget. Echoing kind of what Mr. Stahl also referred to, I think if this came through committee and then was for future action and for action, I would support it just as a process. I still think that would give us enough time that this would put it in front of our entire district ahead of the school year that would allow this not to be in the classrooms, which is ultimately, I think, what the goal is moving forward. So that's where I sit right now.
Mr. Bain?
I will say I'm very disappointed. You all blindly followed a resolution a couple weeks ago or a month ago on the Spencer Playground to do something we couldn't even do, that we had to come back and fix. And we can't support a resolution to do something that we're being told by administration we don't do. So that's my last piece.
I agree with you, and I would fully support as proposed. I think there's no need for us to boil the ocean. This is not, we're not changing the calculus and math curriculum for AP Calculus. Like, as has already been communicated, this is an archaic, dated method of teaching that needs to go away, and I fully support what you proposed.
So, well, I have some comments. So, while I echo what Ms. Marks said with regard to supporting the spirit of the motion, I have a problem with the procedural posture that this is coming forward, and it has nothing to do with this particular issue. I fundamentally am opposed to any particular issue being tied or a condition to the approval of the budget. I think that sets a really bad precedent and could create problems in the future. I mean, if you have 6 or 7 different proposals from different board members that's being presented because we're now receptive to the idea of tying proposed resolutions or pet projects or initiatives to the approval of the budget, then the problem with the budget becomes then if, you know, one board member supports 4 of the 7 and you can't get a majority to support those 4, you end up with a plurality and you're I think it's a bad precedent, personally. And I don't think that, because of that, I think it's procedurally the way to go about it. I hear what you're saying about wanting to empower Dr. Mosier about if this is what we're going to do to give clear direction. My response to that would be that we can do that same thing without it being tied to the budget. If this were to get passed and this was approved as part of the budget and there was non-compliance, then there would be ramifications, right? If we don't pass this as part of the budget and we, a month from now, 2 months from now, adopt a standalone resolution for this and there's non-compliance, it's the same ramifications, right? I mean, on a policy standpoint.
Not really, 'cause she's lived it.
No, let me finish, I'm not done yet. So, no, I disagree because the process of it being adopted and the failure to comply with that would result in terms of the authority of the board and the administration, the tools available for disciplinary action or whatever repercussions, they're going to be the same whether it's adopted as amendment to this or adopted as a standalone resolution. The other thing is, I mean, we're not the state or the federal government where you need to tie things to a budget, because if you don't, then the legislature doesn't have the authority to then adopt a binding resolution that controls the actions and expenditures of an administrative agency or part of the executive body. The administration reports to us, whether it's under this budget, whether it's under this budget amendment, or a separate resolution. So because as a practical matter, the enforceability and the ramifications for failing to comply with whatever format this comes forward are the same, I think it's a mistake to start opening the Pandora's box of having a policy and protocol of having proposed resolutions from board members on whatever their particular topic is that's tied to the budget, and makes the budget process that much more difficult to adopt. The final thing I want to say is with regard to Spencer, the Spencer process, the playground, it followed the process. We had the proposal went through the facility committee, which this would theoretically go through the academic committee. The facility committee reported out, it was put on for future action. Ken, at the time of the meeting that was on for future action, made a motion to amend to move it for action. We agreed to do that. Ultimately, we tabled it and put it back to for future action because we wanted to study it further. It then came back for action at a subsequent meeting. We approved it. It turned out that, to your point, that there was some practical difficulties in terms of the implementation from a construction, and we fixed it. But the fact of the matter is, and it wasn't tied to a budget. I mean, the whole Spencer playground donation wasn't tied to a budget. It went through the steps that we go through for policies or for expenditures to move forward through the committee structure and ultimately on the agendas for the board. So, I mean, I think following the Spencer model would mean that we wouldn't support this amendment, in my opinion. So again, I support the concept. I don't think it's appropriate to tie it to the approval of the budget.
I think the problem is I don't, this is the intent of the budget, want any money spent on it. So that's why it's in the budget. And the budget is an appropriate place. I've done my research. I've contacted lots of experts on this. It is absolutely an appropriate place to be doing this. And if we don't want to do it that way, I mean, I can start tying it to other things and we can keep coming up with it. I am not going to rest on this. My own kid asked me to come talk to you today, but she had an important engagement at the same time. I will not rest on this. It will come up meeting after meeting after meeting.
I'm not telling you to rest on it. I'm telling you to raise it as a standalone resolution for future action in the next meeting. I mean, I don't know how much clearer we can be about where we stand for moving it forward.
But it does need to be in place well before August, before they start planning. And I think the teachers deserve to know now, while they're thinking of what materials they want to buy for themselves for next year, that this isn't okay.
Why is the items that Mr. Bain outlined, like, how is the administration enforcing, or why is there a lack of enforcement around what she outlined? The concerns that she expressed with regards to what's being communicated to her versus what's being communicated to her from administration versus what's happening. Why is there a disconnect there? To Roger's
I'll speak
comment
to some
about
of that.
enforcement.
I can speak to some of that. So I would say in general, and we talked about a little bit of this at the academic committee, there is a real piece here. I don't know what resource materials, I don't like to call them curriculum, resource materials were actually adopted by the board in Brighton, to be quite honest. Over time, I did do my research to see what's actually been brought in front of a Board of Ed. I'm not sure if that's actually happened, Andy, to be quite honest, you know? So the goal for me, or for our department, has been to get a solid, comprehensive program in front so we don't have people just finding their own. I mean, I can give you lots of variables of why it may have happened. I don't know the actual answer. I do think some of it still is a remnant of deficit, like when that came out, and then people were just fending for themselves, anything they can find. I do know that when Lucy was brought in, the second time around, it was bought. I don't know if it came in front of the board. I don't know those things, but I do know that it's been kind of piecemeal together over time, and we've been trying to come in and saying, okay, we need to clean this up as a comprehensive program. So that's just one piece. I mean, that's a reality. And so I would say we've been trying to clean that up by piloting something more comprehensive. It just takes time to get there. In regards to, you know, the teacher test days, there's actual contract language that says we may give them. We did have a conversation about cautiously giving those out freely. We said, like, you need to look at that to see if you actually need that time. We do believe you can do a lot of that work in the classroom. We don't know that you actually need a day to do that. And that was done, I don't know, I'll say 3 years ago we had that conversation. That came both from Dr. Outlaw and myself about, so they do have contract language. There is another piece of this. I mean, it's not, I wish it was clean, but they have contract language that also allows them the luxury to have those days or ask their administrator for those days. Do you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of nuance. I wish it was like a clean black and white, but there's a little more gray in this one, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just one comment. Again, this is, I've used this analogy before on different topics, but I'm unaware, I'm aware that you have a personal endeavor with Ms. Calkin and this program, and it didn't work. I don't want to get too far in the weeds from what this is really all about, but I guess if this had come to us, I don't know how many years ago this all started. Could somebody give me a reference point? Are we talking 10 years ago, or are we talking, Calkins has been in our district for a very long time. So I guess the point I'm making is my children went through it and thrived. They both, my 2 adult children. My youngest, I don't know if he's seen it now. I wouldn't, you know, he doesn't know to tell me what it is that he's being taught by. But it's very possible, and he is also thriving in his ability to read and write. So it obviously doesn't affect everyone negatively. If it did, if we had a rash of people coming in saying, my child is having a very hard time, and by, you know, over this period of time, I would have thought we would have had that. If this was the devil, it's not as good as what the new thing is apparently, but it obviously worked for a good percentage of the kids to some extent, because we don't have kids that aren't going to college. We have a great success story with most of our children that go here, and I'm sure we're going to have I think your daughter is probably an elevated student right now. I got to think I know I've talked to your daughter before, and she's brilliant. But I don't think we're killing kids with this. I think it's something we need to update and get to where we need to be, what the best product is. But I don't, if it doesn't get passed until school opens up, because we need time to get this done, I don't think we're hurting a lot of children with this. I hope we're not hurting any of them, and they get alternative help by the teachers that know how to do it. But if I saw a rash of that coming, and if I saw this 10 years ago, I'd have went, wait a minute, what are you doing to my kid? I haven't seen that. You are the first person that has brought this to our attention like this, and I applaud you for it. And I'll be glad to get rid of this if it doesn't work for 100% of our children. Why wouldn't I? I just don't want it attached that way. Again, I'll say it again, I'll pass it right now, just take it off the budget and let's enforce it the other way. I can't say it enough. That's it.
Even Lucy doesn't do Lucy anymore.
Well,
In 2023, Lucy said, you know what, this is bad. So
There you go.
we are still doing something that Lucy herself doesn't do.
Well, let's stop it. Let's
Wait,
just
let's
not
stop
attach
it
it to,
tonight.
why do we need to
But
attach it to the budget?
Can I also ask, do you know how many kids at Hawkins can read at the third grade level?
No, I do not know the percentage.
40%. 40% of our kids at Hawkins are reading at third grade level. You're saying kids are thriving here. They are not.
Hey, where does
That's
that
less than
resource
half
come
reading at a
from?
grade.
Where does that number come from?
M-STEP, I looked it up today. And Liz confirmed it in our academic meeting. 40% of our kids at Hawkins aren't reading at grade level via the M-STEP results. That's not majority of our kids thriving. Just because the high school kids are thriving, they didn't go through all of this.
Oh, my children
It's
are
our
26
young-
and 24.
Right,
They've
they
been
didn't
through
go
all of
through
it.
this, and the kids that are graduating right now didn't go through much of this. It's the younger kids that we are failing.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, we're doing the motion, we're doing the amendment, because we have a pending, yeah, we have a pending amended motion with Ms. Urbane's resolution attached to it. That's what's on the table. So,
Can we do a roll call vote on it, please?
sure, roll call. So Ms. Ackermite, a roll call vote, and a yes is in support of the amendment to the budget.
Okay, Mrs. Urbane? Yes. Mrs. Tierney? Yes. Mr. Storm?
Yes.
Mr. Stahl?
No.
Dr. Krebs?
No.
Mrs. Marks? No. Mr. Myers?
No. So that motion fails 3-4, which now takes us back to the motion for the approval of the projected budget for 2025, 2026. Any further discussion on that? Okay.
Comment from the question that I asked to Dave. I do think, I appreciate the expediency by which this budget was presented tonight, and we're now voting on it a half hour after going through the presentation with you, Dave. But it just seems odd to me that as a district, we glossed over the contribution from shared services. It wasn't even literally referenced in the slides. I know that wasn't by accident, but it's a very, very meaningful part of this budget. And I think that we as a district, when it comes to budget, voting on the budget, it just seems to me that that would be something that would at least be flagged, noted, reviewed, versus just kind of glossed over. Because if that materially changes, that source of revenue, this district very materially changes very, very quickly. And so I just think it's unfortunate that that was not included in what was presented, and it wasn't even discussed outside of the questions, so.
Ms. Urbane?
I'm actually surprised because we did discuss this at the Finance Committee, and we knew exactly how much was from shared services, and we talked about presenting it that way. And it didn't get presented that way with the line item from shared services, but it was presented at the Finance Committee with that line item. So there are documents, and I went back to look, and I couldn't pull it up right away, but there are documents with it. And I'm a little disappointed we didn't talk about it, because I thought when we gave the direction at the Finance Committee that we were going to present it that way.
Well, I disagree. When we were in the Finance Committee, there was supporting documentation that we looked at, which included some of the detail with shared services, pie charts, there's additional information that goes into the detail behind it. But as far as as I understand, in terms of the way the budget is required to be presented, this is the format. Certainly, if anyone, at any point in time, and I encourage you, a lot of times things are presented and questions are raised, and I know we all have busy schedules, but when I would highly encourage everyone when the packet comes out, and if there's a piece of information that's missing, just, email Dave and say, Dave, can you share that with me? And I'm not being critical of anybody.
I know you're not.
I'm just saying that would be, if that was something that was important, and I do that, and I know that others have done that with respect to different issues, but, I mean, this is I don't recall ever having I've been on the board 9 years, almost, 8.5 years. I don't ever recall there being a budget for the preliminary, amended, or final that had a breakdown of, this is the format that's been used the entire time that I've been here. And maybe I'm wrong, but is it tied to the accounting standards that's required for budget reporting?
And what happens is when audit is done, the actual results are compared to the budget, and it is compared to it on a function code level.
Right.
Because by state regulation, you cannot overspend at that level. So that is why it is presented in that manner.
I love you to death, Dave. This is not a criticism of you. You've been a godsend to this district, and I'm so happy that we hired you after what happened with your predecessor. You're doing a tremendous job. State function codes, budget templates aside, we absolutely have 100% complete control over what gets presented on that overhead projector right there. That has nothing to do with complying with the state budget, how the budget's presented to the board. My issue's not with the P&L, the income statement that you're including that follows all the function codes of the state. What I am saying is the public, tax-paying public, who we are on the cusp, and I have publicly stated at prior board meetings, I'll say it again, I am in favor of giving the public the opportunity to vote yes or no on a bond proposal for this district. I think it's absolutely something that taxpayers in this district should have the right to vote in favor of or against. But we, the board, and the administration owe it to the public to communicate with them transparently about where significant sources of revenue for this district come from beyond the tax base that exists in this community. And the fact that we don't do that terrifies me, because we owe them a high level of transparency with regards to where huge chunks of this district's sources of revenue come from. And if those sources of revenue go away, this district will very materially change, very materially. And I think it's very important that that's communicated in a transparent manner to the public, so they're made aware of that. They can then do whatever they want to do with that information, but we owe it to the public to make them aware of that. And I think tonight we failed in making them aware. That's my only point.
Fair enough. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? Aye. That passes 6-1. All right, that moves us to item G, Resolution Title III. Is that Mr. Jones? Title III, or who, or
Get that one.
or Dr. Mosher?
I know it's budget, but don't worry. So this is just, we've put this in front of you before. This is funding federal money for our multilingual students. We cover this through 31A and general fund as required, just so you know. So this would just be saying we appreciate the money, but we'd like to send that back as we cover it, again, with our own monies and through 31A at-risk money.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the resolution relinquishing the Title III funds for 2025-2026?
So moved.
Dr. Krebs,
Support.
support by Ms. Marks. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to the fuel tank removal and installation.
Yes, I got this one.
Mr. Jones?
So yes, we put out an RFP to have the 2 fuel tanks at the transportation building, the contractor services to have the tanks removed and replaced. We've already purchased the tanks. And so we had a mandatory walkthrough. We had 4 companies come through the walkthrough. We got 4 bids. The winning bid was Corrigan Mechanical with the amount of $493,534, which was over $100,000 less than the next bid. And so we are asking for the board to accept their bid, and so we can enter into a contract and get our fuel tanks replaced over the summer.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the Corrigan Mechanical Contractors bid?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Ms. Tierney. Any discussion?
That was part of the interview with Corrigan, is that they would be able to get it done over the summer. The tanks are due to be here mid-July or so.
Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to item I, the County Preschool Consortium. Dr. Outlaw.
So we talked about this at our last meeting. I have shared the contract. The county is looking to work together as it relates to the Great Start Readiness Program, the state program where 100% of the funds are allocated from the state to the ISD, and we receive those funds at the pleasure of the ISD. We talked about it earlier today. We currently have 8 Brighton classes for GSRP in our buildings. We also have 2 that are operated by LESA. So we have 10 classrooms that this would impact. I'm going to share a common presentation that was given for the superintendent. So I'm just going to share this, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on this. This is an opportunity for the county to work together and collaborate, particularly around things like payroll and the budget. So in this presentation, the general concept of this is that it's a combination of local control, where the Brighton, we have control over certain aspects of the instruction for the children. The director works for us, so on and so forth. I'll get to specifics in a second. But then collectively, as a county, we work together with the back office support, with enrollment, nutrition, transportation, specialists, special education, a variety of things, payroll, licensing. We work together on those things. So that's the general concept of the collaborative. So these are the key roles that are presented. The local school districts, they operate the state-run classrooms. So our director, Janice Ramirez, and her team, they would operate those classrooms. They oversee day-to-day instructions, they deal with students, their struggles, their needs, so on and so forth. They're in charge of culture. It is a Brighton program that they run. LESA, through the collaborative, they would be the payroll department. We would still be doing hiring, but they would process and they would audit, they would do all the onboarding that would go with any GSRP staffing. They would deal with expense, the budget. Again, 100% of the funds go through the county, and then we get reimbursed for those through the county. So they are in charge of the budget. We would submit our local budget to them, but they are the fiduciary. They also will provide more in-depth special education support services, occupational therapy, speech therapy, a variety of things in that area. And then they also will assist with common training across the county. To be clear, GSRP is a state program. GSRP is something that we sign on to. If we want to have free preschool through the state program, it is their curriculum. They have 4 options. We have to choose one of their options. The pupil-to-teacher ratios is set by the state. Those are not decisions that are made at the consortium. Those are done at the state level. GSRP has been around for 30 years plus, and obviously it's become a bigger deal recently. It's more accessible to more students. So continuing on, general timeline is tonight, we're looking at this, but also across the county, the other school districts are going to be asking their districts to join in this pilot program. in the contract that I had shared with you, it is a one-year commitment for our school district, gives us an opportunity to collaborate with our county partners, and to be part of really working to make this the best preschool program possible for all of our students. With that, I am going to just stop, and I'm going to open up to questions that you've had. I know we've had dialogue around this, but what questions, I know we talked about it at the academic committee, but what questions do you have for me?
Yeah, I was going to just say that we did talk about this academic committee, and I just want to get a couple things clarified out here, so I just want to ask. So anybody that's doing the state-funded curriculum, the preschool curriculum, has to use GSRP, correct?
Correct. If you want it state-funded, it is the
So
GSR.
we don't have a choice for that.
Yeah. Currently, the governor is calling it pre-K for all, but it started as GSRP, and it's been around for many years. But it's a state-funded program.
And then we select the teachers, and we have control of the teachers, but they're paid through LESA.
They will be paid through LESA starting on January 1st.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Just to clarify, there are tuition. If you're in tuition program, you do not have to do GSRP, but if you want state funding, you have to do the state program, so.
Since the academic committee, I was able to get clarification,
Mm-hmm.
and the general curriculum, as you said, is state required. They do allow local control on supplemental literacy resources. So
Great.
we need to be careful that we're not supplementing it with things that don't work and that are science of reading based.
Sure.
I also am in supportive of trying this consortium and seeing if it works. I just also want to be on record to say that I don't love the way the entire state program works. If they're going to go to universal pre-K, we should just have a foundation allowance like we do for any other kid. And I think that's what we should push for. This reimbursement model is not good for districts, it's not good for kids. But that's what we have today, so I am going to vote in favor of joining the consortium, but I wish we would go to a foundation allowance model.
To agree completely with what you said. I think that's right on track. I mean, this is what we have and this is what we can choose, but ideally, I would prefer another method of funding. This, to me, just the way it's set up in general, it benefits the ISDs. I don't think it's really to the advantage of the local school districts, but given that we can do it for a year and we'll see where we're at, and then we'll go from there. Next year, we can evaluate as we go, so.
Because we need a third echo of that sentiment. I feel the same way, and I just want to be on record saying that I would love to see the financials funneled a different way, not through the ISD, and I hope that our state can rethink that.
All right, any further questions, comments? All right, all those in favor, wait, we need a motion, yeah. So do we have a motion, my apologies. Do we have a motion to approve the district entering into the county preschool consortium as presented? Moved by Dr. Krebs, support by Ms. Urbane. Any discussion now? We actually jumped the gun on the discussion, so that's what threw me off, yeah. Yeah, all right, no further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays?
Yes.
That passes 6-1. Okay, moves us to item J, architect selection.
That's right.
Mr. Stahl, you want to lead us in that?
Yes, so we did hold interviews. We had 3 companies, French, Lindau, and Kingscott. All of them were very impressive. I believe we would have been served well by any choice we made. The committee unanimously agreed that Kingscott was the correct fit for Brighton, and a couple key points were they had worked with Clark on many projects and have a great relationship with them, and that will absolutely help us get through some tough times when it comes to planning. And they also have in-house marketing, which is very helpful for our campaign planning. So it is a general consensus. It is the facilities recommendation to hire Kingscott as our architect.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
for the hiring of King Scott. Motion by Mr. Storm, support by Ms. Tierney. All right, any discussion? All right, I just wanted to add, I appreciate all of the applicants. We obviously have been working with Lynn Howe, one of the applicants, one of the candidates for a long time, and have had a very positive experience working with them. If King Scott is ultimately who is approved, I hope we continue to be able to utilize Lynn Howe for future services. In fact, we still currently have ongoing work with them with regard to the Beck improvements, and have always been very impressed with the quality and caliber of work of Lynn Howe, and certainly do not want to discourage the district from continuing that relationship in the future. So, with that said, any further?
I would like to elaborate on that. That was the discussion at the committee. We do have Linda working with us now. We would almost hope that they somehow could collaborate, or at least continue with our projects going forward, because they've been nothing but a great asset to this district.
Okay. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That concludes the for action portion of the agenda and moves us to the for future action MHSAA resolution. This is the
Mr.
resolution.
Thompson, is there anything that you needed to share regarding the MHSA? This is just the annual.
Right.
This is our enrollment. We'd like to participate in state tournaments.
Again, maybe it's not appropriate now, but I'll
Yeah,
make
sure,
it quick.
this-
Like, I brought it up last year. I'd love to just get this off the agenda and empower the administration to work with the athletic director. I think it's ridiculous.
I know, but we can't. The MHSA requires board approval.
Even if we were to say that for the next 3 years, it has to be annual. It's ridiculous.
They send it every year.
You're preaching to the choir, Andy. I mean, yeah. Anyway.
30 seconds.
It'll be quick and painless next time. All right. Item B, student handbooks. Mr. Anastasov, or who wants to talk about that?
Yeah, I can at least start it. So at our policy committee today, before this board meeting, so we did discuss the student handbooks. 4 of them went through and are going to be making recommendations to the board. And so I will be sending those out shortly to all the board members so that they can be reviewed as well appropriately before we go into for future action in July, and then for action in August for these.
Does it look like any of the schools have any major, is it all kind of minor stuff or general?
I mean, I wouldn't consider necessarily them major. I mean, there's definitely, there's items involving like the code of conduct, which is fairly common in those, and some structural changes, but I wouldn't classify any of major, kind of like light or medium probably.
If I may, I think it's important to say that we're trying to align all the buildings also, so that the verbiage is the same. It's a little different, each one of them, and the only thing I can come up with is they probably all individually make their packets and nobody came together on it. So that was a big part of it that I think is important.
Yeah.
All right. Moves us to item C, pavilion donation. Is that Ms. Urbane? You were the architect behind that originally, I believe, but anyone who would like to talk about this topic?
Are you okay?
I'm okay, but I will tell you that once it goes to for action, I'll recuse myself. So,
Fair enough.
just to not have a conflict of interest. But I'm on the board of the Brighton Youth Baseball and Softball Program Foundation. They used to run the program. The program transitioned over to BARC, but we kept a foundation because there's a sizable amount of money there. We were trying to decide what we're going to do, scholarships, a miracle field, something else. We went through a number of reiterations of what we should do with this. The money was amassed over a number of years from the families of the community, of the kids that played in the program. Ultimately, the board decided that it should go back so that the community could at least have the fruits of their fundraising efforts over time. And so the suggestion was a pavilion at Hawkins where all the baseball and softball facilities are. We gave in the information submitted to the Facilities Committee, 2 options. One fully paid for by the donation, but in a happenstance conversation with Hawkins PTO, they said, oh, wow, we've long wanted a pavilion. It would take us 6 or so years to raise money for that. But we do have $10,000 we could put toward the project. So we had some additional money from the foundation we were going to hold back just to make sure we could wind up all the affairs. We have to do, you know, some paperwork and stuff. But we agreed that with the tournaments that we were running yet this summer, we could probably up our donation amount by $10,000. That would still put us about $12,000 short of a 30-person pavilion that a whole class could stay in. So the option is an 18-person pavilion that's fully paid for, or if the board so desires, an 18-person pavilion that we could use money out of the project, the capital project fund to complete. So we think this would be a nice addition to the Hawkins facility, one, for all the tournaments and baseball and softball things that are going on there, but also for the community, and we hope that it would be placed, we have to work with Mr. Jacobs, but somewhere in between the 2 playgrounds so that parents can do it, and we can rent it out for birthdays or parties or family reunions or whoever. We could rent this thing out. We did get a 3rd quote. You have 2 in your packet. We got a 3rd quote, but the 3rd quote was higher than the other 2, and it was wood, not steel. And it just didn't make any sense to do something that had to have ongoing upkeep and would be more expensive.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Comment would be, thank you. And it's amazing, and what a great idea.
Yeah, thank you for your work in bringing this forward. I personally would support the contributing the $12,000 from the district to build the larger pavilion. That's what I'll be supporting. So,
Agreed.
yeah, all right. I guess, you
Just
know,
the only other thing I want to bring forward is, and it's in the paperwork, and hopefully she's not watching, but we would like to do some naming of that pavilion based on some longtime volunteers. So it's not public information yet, but it is in your paperwork. So, but I want to make sure you're aware, and and she has been vetted and you know, worked out. But I don't want any surprises that when that comes up, they will be asking for some naming of it.
okay, wonderful. Okay, that concludes the for future action portion of our agenda. Moves us to item 9, board committee chair reports, community recognition. Anyone have any, Dr.
I
Krebs?
think it's pretty clear, we had an academic committee meeting today. We talked about the ELA curriculum, we talked about the preschool. What else did we talk about? We talked about test scores, we talked about the curriculum hub update. So pretty much we talked about what we've talked. It's all been coming through the board. We haven't set our next meeting yet, but I don't think we did that, but we'll set that in the future.
Okay.
We also had a policy meeting this afternoon, and we will be moving things, as Mr. Anastasov, not just student handbook, but you will also see some additional policies, combination of new and some updates in the next board meeting for future action, with the hope that we would be moving them to for action in August.
The Facilities Committee, I can say that now that we have both parts together, architect and builder, we are going to start ramping up and coming up with pricing for the things that we want to do. That will start being probably most of what my life has been on for a while, because we do have a short amount of time in order to come up with what it is that we are going to do. But now that we have the team together, we can start on that almost immediately. Please contact me with any ideas, differences, thoughts. I'll take all the information I can get, because it's going to take all the community to get this done. Thank you.
And the Finance Committee met a couple weeks ago now. The primary focus of our committee meeting dealt with, obviously, the budget, which we've discussed extensively this evening, and also the bond, the scope, working through further discussions regarding the scope of the bond, the timing, issues that we've also obviously been talking in other contexts in the previous meeting, and obviously it's an ongoing conversation which will hopefully move forward with much greater in earnest now that we've got the team, the professional team between Clark and King Scott moving forward in that endeavor. And I would imagine there's going to be a lot of additional information that will be forthcoming in the next month as this gets further refined and analyzed and vetted for moving forward with the project. So that's all we really have for the Finance Committee. While I'm talking, I just, as far as like the community recognition, I just want to say that once again, the graduation on Friday night was absolutely amazing. Congratulations to the administration, the staff, all the students who took on a very active leadership role in making that an incredible ceremony. As I was walking out of the stadium, I still had my gown on, and there was a gentleman walking out, and he said, I'm here as a grandparent. He said, but I'm a retired college professor. He said, and I've been to a lot of graduation ceremonies. And he said, by far, this was the best graduation ceremony I have ever been to. He said, well, first of all, when I saw there was 500 students, I'm thinking, my God, we're going to be here till midnight. And so he was very complimentary of the efficiency, the professionalism, just really very impressed. And, I mean, he couldn't say enough positive things about, what an amazing experience and a testament to the district and its students and their talents and the organization that went into that. And so he said, hopefully, whatever your part was, I said, I had no part in it. I just had up there and just handed the principals the diplomas. But no, it was. So, I mean, that says a lot, and it was. I mean, it was truly remarkable, as they always are. And they never cease to amaze me, so congratulations to everyone.
I was just going to say, and I want to say the same thing for the senior all-night party. I give a lot of credit to Michelle. She's organized this for a number of years. It's a well-oiled machine. I do worry what happens when Michelle is no longer organizing it as her kids are aging out, but it is a well-oiled machine.
I think Christina volunteered to take over that role.
Oh, yeah. The kids had a good time. Quite frankly, the volunteers had a great time. And it was nice to see much of the administrators there. They looked a little bored. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of problems, but I think that's a good thing.
Skipping back to committee, just an update on student nutrition. We met June 3rd to discuss some of our topics. Annual meals report was one of them. We looked at fresh fruit sourcing, with the goal of providing more of a variety to the students in the 25-26 school year, along with additional vegetables and meal entrees being offered. I would like to thank the kitchen managers and the staff at all of the elementary schools who allowed me in their space. It's a complex system, and they work so hard and don't complain and are so efficient, and I'm proud of them. So thank you for allowing me in your kitchen spaces to understand the processes and flow. And then we will be discussing this more in August for a future fresh fruit pilot for the next school year.
Okay, anything further?
I would like to make a motion to enter into closed session for the purpose of discussing negotiation strategies connected with BEA, BESPA, and BASA bargaining units, and as much as the administration has requested a closed session.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Stahl. Do we have a second? Support by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? All right, we'll need a roll call vote for this. Ms. Ackermite?
Mrs. Marks? Yes. Dr. Krebs? Yes. Mrs. Tierney? Mr. Stahl?
Yes?
Mrs. Urbane? Yes. Mr. Storm?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes. That passes 7-0. All right, we will be moving into closed session. We have no further business items on our agenda this evening, so when we reconvene out of closed session, our meeting will be concluded. Thank you for being here, and have a great evening.
Pleasure. Can we go down to room 15? We had some tech issues, and Nick had to do something. He said, I can't turn it off.